Welcome to the Creative Penn podcast. I'm Joanna Penn, thriller author and creative entrepreneur, bringing you interviews, inspiration and information on writing, publishing options and marketing ideas for your book. You can find the episode show notes, your free author blueprint and lots more information at thecreativepenn.com, and that's pen with a double N. And here's the show. Hello creatives, I'm Joanna Penn, and this is episode number 623 of the podcast, and it is Friday the 20th of May 2022 as I record this extra in-between-isode, and I'm putting it out right now. So on today's solo show, I'm going through an update on AI-Narrated Audiobooks, and it's important to date stamp this as 20th of May 2022 as things change a lot in this space, and I've been talking about AI narration for several years now, but it's clearly just starting to go mainstream. I have had so many emails every day recently about the same questions, especially since Google released their free service, which I'll talk about soon. So, and this morning, the first email I checked was another email asking me about this stuff. So I was like, right, I need a roundup. I need a roundup article with the most important information. So all of this is in the show notes. I wrote it all out first, and there's pictures and links and everything in the show notes. So you can always go to thecreativepenn.com/podcast. This is episode number 623. And, or thereabouts. I think I've got a bit mixed up in my numbers, but it's around there. So for context on this episode, very importantly, I am an audiobook narrator. I narrate my own non-fiction and short stories. I absolutely value human narrators, and over the last decade, I have spent tens of thousands of dollars hiring professional narrators for my novels and non-fiction over the last decade. I am in my personal audio booth. I am a voice artist, I guess. I make money from my voice. So I'm absolutely part of the human narration side of things. But I'm also a futurist, and I embrace AI tools as part of my creative and business practice. So this episode covers why are AI-narrated audiobooks an important development? But AI voices are robotic and don't have the right intonation. Nobody wants to listen to that. And why, obviously, I think that's wrong. Will AI-narrated audiobooks put real humans out of a job? What services can you use to create AI-narrated audiobooks? Can anyone create an AI-narrated audiobook? What intellectual property rights do you need to hold? Where can you sell them? Can you just upload them everywhere, including the big services? What price should they be? How can you make sure that listeners know it is AI-narrated? Why is labelling important, in my opinion? How do you market AI-narrated audiobooks? And where is AI narration heading in the next few years? And then I'll include some samples at the end of the show so you can hear different voices from different services and compare them with my human narration. This episode is sponsored by my wonderful patrons at patreon.com/thecreativepenn. Thank you all for enabling me to continue exploring the future of creativity and the author business model. And I have actually spent over 8 hours today preparing all this material. So that is sponsored by my patrons. If you find the in-betweeny-sos useful, please consider supporting the show at patreon.com/thecreativepenn. You can also find out lots more on how AI can help you create and earn more in my course on the AI-assisted author, available on Teachable along with all my courses at thecreativepenn.com/learn. And one of the lessons in the AI-assisted author is on audio, but there's loads of other things in there, so you can go check out the curriculum at thecreativepenn.com/learn. Right, let's get into it. Why are AI-narrated audiobooks an important development? Most content in written words is not available in audio format, primarily because it is expensive to produce, and many countries and languages don't have an established audiobook production ecosystem. I find so much of this discussion is about English language, but what we're talking about is every other language on the planet. It's important to have written word content in audio for accessibility reasons, but also because many people choose to consume in audio even if they can read with their eyes. It's easier to listen than read because you can do other things at the same time, driving, exercising, chores, etc. There is room for all formats, and our job is to make sure our books are available in whatever format the customer chooses. Personally, I listen to a lot of non-fiction audiobooks while exercising, cooking, cleaning and doing chores, as well as when travelling to rest my eyes. My husband listens to epic fantasy audiobooks every evening for relaxation, and they have to be at least 40 hours each for him to enjoy them. Audio content also needs to be more diverse. Why do I always have to listen to business books read by an American male voice? Why can't I choose the voice of the narrator? People identify with people who speak like them. Why can't someone choose the accent they prefer as well as the language and gender, in the same way we choose the voice of our Google Assistant, Siri or Alexa? It would be prohibitively expensive to create multiple versions of audiobooks with different voices, but it could be achieved with AI narration. But AI voices are robotic and don't have the right intonation or emotion. No one wants to listen to that. AI narration will never supplant high-quality audiobooks performed by actors and voice artists at the pinnacle of their craft. They will never replace the art end of the audiobook market. They are not intended to. In fact, the rise of AI narration might even push human narration into even more beautiful forms of audio art, because the mass-market content side can be produced with AI, and narrators can focus on the books they care about. Also, remember, you are not your audience, and you don't speak for the entire world of potential listeners. Even if you never want to listen to an AI-narrated book, why stop others from listening? Many people would rather have the content in audio in any voice than not at all, especially if their language is underserved in terms of audiobooks. AI voices are also improving all the time. I've included samples at the end of this podcast episode, and on the show notes they are embedded so you can have a listen to some of mine. There are a couple of versions for non-fiction and a couple of versions for fiction as well. Human narration is also variable, as is listener preference. I'm an audio consumer. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, mostly non-fiction, and I sometimes wonder if I am already listening to an AI, and perhaps I am sometimes. There are plenty of human narrators who sound expressionless, and plenty of material that is not particularly full of emotion, particularly the more technical or business books that I listen to a lot. Plus, I listen at 1.5x speed anyway, so it often doesn't even matter. I'm listening for the content, not the performance. Probably 95% of the audio I listen to is for content, not performance. And then occasionally I will buy some full cast audio production of something wonderful, but it is the least amount of audio I listen to personally. So everyone's different. There are also an increasing number of tools for other voice-first needs, of which audiobooks are perhaps the smallest use case. Gaming, for example, has embraced AI tools for years, including AI for voice, and it's a huge industry. Podcasters have been using AI tools for several years now. I created a voice double back in 2020 using Overdub through Descript.com, which I still use in the podcast editing process. I mean, I use Descript, I don't use the voice double. Don't worry, this is me, human me. And of course, Mark Leslie Lefebvre and I even had a conversation between our voice doubles on this show. And we need to redo it, actually. Mark, if you're listening, we should redo it because the technology has moved on in the last few years and the voice doubles are so much better now. So I'll put that on the list to bring to you at some point. Will AI-narrated audiobooks put real human narrators out of a job? AI narration will never replace high-quality human performance or the nuances of an actor's ability to communicate meaning or narration by the human author. I've got to believe that because I am the human author who narrates her own audiobooks. But the time is right for a stratification of audio rights into several streams. The full cast multi-voice audio production, probably with sound effects and noises and really cool full cast audio production. Then the human single or multi-voice read without all the extras, but still a human. And then the AI narrated version, of which I would expect there to be several versions. Different accents, for example. In this way, each audiobook is no longer one single product, but many. In the same way that we have multiple versions in other formats. So we have paperback, hardback, large print, other formats for print. We have ebooks on different platforms. And yes, it may change the job for some narrators, but in the same way that the job has changed for a lot of translators with the advent of AI tools like DeepL.com. Many translators have more work now, especially from indie authors, because so many people are doing more translation. There are more books being translated than ever into more languages because of AI. So the bulk of the work is done by the AI translation engine, and then the translator brings the art and the skill and the cultural knowledge of finessing that translation into a final finished product. So I would see something similar. As voice licensing also becomes more important, narrators will license their voices, as Samuel L. Jackson did for Alexa. And this will attract other revenue streams without the high workload of narration. Narrators might use this technology to create the first draft of an audiobook and then finesse the finished product in the same way that AI-augmented translators do. Or authors and creators will license their voices for creating audiobooks themselves. So I could use my own AI voice to create AI-narrated audiobooks, but still in my voice. So very importantly, if you are a narrator, check your contracts for your productions. Who owns your master recordings? What can they do with them? Could whoever hired you create an AI voice from your recordings and license that or use it for more product? That's definitely something that narrators should be checking. Estate management will also include voice licensing for talent after death. And that is already happening because one of the voices that I know Deep Zen uses is licensed from an estate. But what do narrators think about this? Well, I would suggest you listen to some other narrators talking about this. The VO Boss podcast, so that's voiceover, stands for voiceover, VO Boss podcast, they have a load of episodes on this topic. And there are lots of views from it should not be allowed and should be banned to it all sounds terrible, AI will never communicate like a human, so no one is ever going to listen to this, to we should embrace AI, license our voices, use the tools to spread our brand and make more money. As ever, there are varied opinions on new tools and technologies. Also, check out voicebot.ai, which has a podcast discussing these issues in depth, and voicebot.ai has been running for years. Really good. It's a blog and a podcast. It's a human. It's a human behind it. And also I found an article of Publishers Weekly dated 4th of February 2022, so just a couple of months ago. It rounds up a variety of responses to AI narration. It's well worth reading. I'll link in the show notes. Concluding comments. So one, Hilary Huber is a member of the SAG-AFTRA, Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, Audiobook Steering Committee. She's also a board member of the Professional Audiobook Narrators Association, PANA. She says, AI is coming. We can't stop it. But hopefully we can be proactive by creating protections and, more importantly, by raising awareness in general so that listeners and authors can make informed choices. The article also quotes Anthony Goff, who was previously Senior Vice President and Publisher of Hachette Audio, who said, "The technology is good and getting better, but can never fully replace the art of audiobook creation. With the amazing growth of audio over the past few years, it's clear that consumers love narration by professionals, and we do not see AI replacing that. Rather, we see it supplementing it." So absolutely, I agree with both of these comments. AI supplements the existing audio market, and education is needed for consumers so they know what they are getting, and for narrators so they can use the technology to expand their creative and business potential while still retaining the high-end human production values we love so much. I also think there might be these hybrid productions where some human voices are used and some AI voices are used to create these multicast productions. Very interesting times for creativity, not just business. So there is room for all, especially if we start stratifying audio rights in contracts and educating listeners about different options and the impact of each choice. We all know that when we say to our readers in our emails, it would really help if you bought direct from me, because if you buy from a big store, I get less money and I don't see it for ages. So please click this button and buy from me. That's certainly what you guys have been doing with me increasingly for years now, is buying direct from me. And that's brilliant. Thank you so much. Please continue. What services can you use to create AI-narrated audiobooks? So there are different services with different levels of help and distribution options. Google Play Books is free as of May 2022. They have an easy-to-use dashboard where you claim your ebook, which you have published on their platform, choose the voice, and then review the audio. It generates in a few hours, and you can download the files and sell them elsewhere if you like. I've put a screen print of the dashboard so you can see how easy it is, and I've done a couple. And even if you use a different service like Publish Drive to distribute to Google, you can still log in through the dashboard, the Google Play Books dashboard, and claim your books for audio. It's really, really easy to do. And as an independent author, of course, your ebook, whichever you decide to use, has to be wide to access the platform. You cannot use it if you are exclusive in Kindle Unlimited. You can listen to my discussion with Ryan Dingler from Google Play on this show last year. I think it was last year, where we discuss AI for audio, and I will have another interview with Google Play Books sometime in the next few months with an update. DeepZen is a premium service with ethical standards where they pay narrators for voice licensing or pay the estate. They also have distribution to most audiobook services because their quality is so high. The only one I believe they don't, I think that the only one they don't distribute to is Audible. Everywhere else accepts them because they're such high quality. I've produced 2 audiobooks through DeepZen, which are currently going through the distribution platform. They're not out yet, but they're getting there. And you can listen to my discussion with Taylan Karmes from DeepZen. Just before Christmas, we did that in November 2021. Or, of course, you can find the transcripts in the show notes. Everything's linked in the show notes. There are lots of other AI narration and production services and more arriving all the time. Thad McElroy did a great article on Publishers Weekly, and you can read that again, links in the show notes. It has a list of the services and opinions on AI voice in the traditional publishing industry. So definitely look at that if you want more services to look at. Please, please, please make sure you read the terms of service before you use any platform. As ever, there are different prices for services and there are different terms of that service. And essentially, you are signing a contract when you agree to a terms of service. So download a version on the date that you actually use it and keep it as evidence of what you signed at the time, as terms will inevitably change. I think this is super important. It's important for all the services we use and all the contracts you might ever sign as well, obviously. Just thought I'd reiterate it. Can anyone create an AI-narrated audiobook? If you own and control the audiobook rights for specific intellectual property assets, like books or short stories, then you can use AI narration. I guess if you're a publisher, you will be controlling the audiobook rights. If you're an author, if you own and control them, you can do it. Some of the services are not available to all countries, so depending on where you are in the world, it will depend on which service you might be able to use, but I'm sure they will all expand over time. Most of them have English right now, and they're expanding into other languages. Google has more languages. They each have different focuses, and again, hopefully these will be expanded over time. So if you have already licensed your audio rights, if you've signed a contract with a publisher or an audio production company, you cannot create an AI narrated version because at the moment, as I've mentioned, audiobook rights are not stratified. They are not split into multiple rights. Usually you'll just see in a contract that you've signed audiobook rights, and that could mean so many things, which is why I think it's important that we start negotiating specific audio rights. For example, you could sign for human narration within, for English language within certain markets, for example, or world English human narration. Or you could even specify accent. I mean, there's so many ways we could actually split audio rights if we started to take this more seriously. And I think that's what we have to do in a world with AI narration, because we want it all. We don't just want one thing, we want all of it. So also important, if you have done an exclusive license with ACX for that audiobook, you also can't do it because the ACX contract covers all audiobook rights for that book. So it doesn't just cover that version or that human version, it covers everything. So yeah, you definitely have to check your contracts if you don't know you already have it all. Where can you sell AI-narrated audiobooks? Can you just upload them everywhere? So if you create your audiobook with Google Play, you can sell it on Google Play immediately, and it's really fast, super fast and easy. Like, good on them for doing such a good job. You can also download it and sell it direct. So I currently use PayHip with BookFunnel integration, but many authors also use Shopify, Gumroad and other services. So at the moment you can buy my DeepZen digitally narrated audiobooks on my PayHip account, which is payhip.com/thecreativepen, although I'm also looking at Shopify, so I'll be moving to Shopify hopefully in the next month or two once I get that all set up. But Shopify also integrates with BookFunnel, and BookFunnel is a great app. It's just on any device, and BookFunnel has brilliant customer service for anyone who struggles with getting the audio, but it's just like any other audiobook app. So, and I have a tutorial, thecreativepen.com/sell direct tutorial, links in the show notes. So DeepZen, if you use DeepZen, they have distribution to most audiobook services, but you do have to pay to produce and distribute through them to access it. And it's premium service, but their quality is very, very high. I'm really, really impressed by their quality. I don't know about the other services because I haven't used them, but there are lots more. You cannot publish at the time of recording this on the 20th of May, 2022. You cannot publish AI-narrated audiobooks on ACX, and you cannot do that on Findaway Voices either. So this may change in the future, but for now it's human narration only. And that's the question I answer every day at the moment. People are like, oh, but Google says I can just download these and sell them elsewhere. Well, you can sell them direct. You just can't do it on ACX or Findaway. So there you go. What price should your AI-narrated audiobook be? Well, of course, it's up to you. However, it is the same content which is valuable, so please don't make it free, unless it is a promotional price or a first in series. Let's not devalue our books. I do think it should be cheaper than the human narration, but not free. Unless, of course, it is a promotion or the first in series, like we do free for ebooks, etc. So is anyone actually buying these AI-narrated audiobooks? Well, of course, it's early days, and most authors are just trying things out. I've sold a few, but I tend to push my human-narrated audiobooks more heavily, especially as I am the narrator of many of them. Some authors are, however, going into this wholeheartedly. Here's a comment from my YouTube channel from romance author Alex Anders. He said, "This month I converted 65 of my fiction stories to AI-created audiobooks on Google Play. They have outsold my ebooks in territories they are available. It blew my mind when I realised what was happening." And so I replied and said, that's fantastic. And Alex said, he replied subsequently, "I sold 6 sexy romance AI-generated audiobooks yesterday, and the only market it is available on is the US Google Play Store. I sold 0 ebooks in the same territory. I think we are on the verge of a serious revolution, and it blows me away." So clearly, sales will increase if there is more AI-narrated content available in more markets, in more languages, and if listeners are educated about their choices. How can you make sure that listeners know this is AI-narrated? Why is labelling important? I think AI-produced audiobooks should be labelled. This is part of the ethical use of AI tools, which I'll link in the show notes to the Alliance of Independent Authors, which I was part of kind of producing that. There's no need to hide the fact that an audiobook is AI-narrated. We're not trying to hide that. It's not trying to confuse anyone or cheat anyone. We're saying this is AI narrated, and that's good. So why not make it obvious? we don't want to mislead anyone, and in fact we want to educate them about their choices. Do you want this audiobook narrated by a human? Or do you want this audiobook narrated by an AI voice? Maybe they want both. There is room for both in the market. So I'm using a sticker. It's like a big round, looks like a sticker. Of course, it's just a picture of a sticker on my audiobook covers with digitally narrated on them. I hope something like this becomes the industry standard. So if you're going to do this, I hope you do this. We can also use something like it to emphasize human narration and make that part of the packaging. So I'm using a banner that says narrated by the author to differentiate the products. And I'm, for example, on PayHip, it's got digitally narrated audiobooks, and I'll do that when I move on to Shopify. There'll be very clear definitions of which audiobooks are by humans or not. So I think we really do need to label, and I would encourage everyone, and if you're part of these various industry things, please encourage labeling of product, both AI and human. So how do you market AI-narrated audiobooks? Well, in the same way as you market any other audio or ebook or print book that you sell direct. So I have a section on my PayHip store for digital narration, as I mentioned. I've got links in my on my website. I talk about it. I do content marketing. You can put it in your email and your social media. You can tell your readers about it, educate them on why you're using AI for voice and the different ramifications. And in the show notes, I link to 16 more ways you can market your audiobook. But essentially, I never understand why people question why they, if they should market it differently. It's just another product type. So market it just like any other format that we use. So where is AI narration heading in the next few years? I think that AI narration will become an increasingly accepted part of the audio ecosystem, and services that don't accept AI-narrated books now will likely do so in the next few years, unless they specifically have a point of difference that is, we are human-only, so it might be human-only services. I think Audible will allow AI-narrated content at some point. Given that is my opinion, that is based on zero inside information, it's just my opinion. Given that they are owned by Amazon, which already has very developed AI for voice with Alexa and Polly, they will likely produce their own software as a service in the same way that Google Play has, or will just use the Polly tools that are available right now. Also, Spotify bought Findaway in November 2021, and that's the parent company of Findaway Voices. And Spotify allows AI voices for music and musicians who collaborate with AI to produce human plus AI music. So why not allow AI-narrated audiobooks? And presumably they're going to open their catalogue for more audiobooks at some point. You can already reach them with Zebralution, but clearly we'll be able to do that at some point. I would hope before November 2022 we will have our Findaway catalogue on Spotify, but again, that is my opinion and my hope, not based on any knowledge. So in the same way that consumers currently expect an ebook version of pretty much every print book, they will also expect an audiobook version of every ebook and written word resource in every language and perhaps in varying accents within that language. People expect more diversity, so we need diversity in voice as much as anything else. We can only achieve this with AI narration because there are not enough humans to narrate in every language and every accent. There are already apps that read written content aloud in various voices, and these might well acquire licenses to read audiobook content as well as other content. Many countries do not have a developed audiobook production ecosystem, so AI narration will help them produce massive amounts of content in audio because they have so much to catch up on. Because of this need and the resistance to AI audio in the English language, the growth of AI narration will probably be in markets other than English language over the next few years, where I expect we'll see huge adoption in other markets. All of this, I believe, will be fantastic for audio-first consumers, as more and more content is available in audio and in languages they prefer, and hopefully accents, as I mentioned. For creators, rights holders, and narrators, AI-narrated audio will drive down costs, but it will also drive down revenue, as we have seen with ebooks. Ubiquitous audio and the rise of subscription models will continue to erode income from audiobooks, some of which may be made up in increased volume, but not all. This digital abundance only increases the importance of personal branding and developing a relationship with readers and listeners, as well as expanding streams of income. This is at the heart of the emerging creator economy, and I consider narrators as part of this, not just authors. Don't rely on streaming and subscription services for your audio revenue, or indeed your ebook revenue. In the same way as many of us no longer rely on the big services for the rest of our author income. We are wide in all senses of the word. Sell direct and use your intellectual property assets to create new products and new revenue streams. Readers and listeners love their favourite narrators and authors and will continue to buy from them. So emphasise high-quality human narration options as well as the cheaper AI audio. Charge premium prices for the human version, in the same way as we might charge more for a limited edition hardback compared to an ebook borrow or a subscription service. Audiobooks should not be just one product, they should be many more. Create multiple streams of income with your audio by selling on different platforms, not just on the subscription and streaming services. Emerging blockchain and NFT opportunities will enable limited edition collectible digital audio for superfans, and you can use patron models, crowdfunding and other revenue streams. Those who embrace AI narration for audio, as well as high-quality human narration, will reach more listeners and expand their market. As Kevin Kelly says in The Inevitable, this is not a race against the machines. If we race against them, we lose. This is a race with the machines. You'll be paid in the future based on how well you work with robots. It is inevitable. So let's figure out how we can work with the robots, AI, in order to create more, serve more customers, and increase the value of our creative businesses as authors, narrators, and rights holders. Personally, I will continue to narrate my own non-fiction and short stories, and I intend to license my voice when that becomes a possibility. I'll also continue to hire professional human narrators through Findaway Voices, and I will also produce multiple forms of AI-narrated audiobooks. I'm going to do it all. I'm more excited than ever about AI tools for authors, narrators, and rights holders. So, as ever, I'd love to know what you think. Please leave a comment on the blog post. You can tweet me at thecreativepenn with a double N, or email me, joanna@thecreativepenn.com, or leave a comment on the YouTube episode. Right, I'm now going to share some samples from my various audiobooks, 2 fiction and 2 non-fiction. The first one is Your Author Business Plan, which is non-fiction, narrated by me. And of course, I have a British, English, female voice. And this is my human narration, not AI-generated Joe. And I have a southern, southwest of England accent. Introduction. You are an author. You turn ideas into reality in the shape of a book. You turn the thoughts in your head into valuable intellectual property assets. You understand how powerful the written word can be. This book will help you use your words to create a business plan to take your writing career to the next level, whatever that means for your situation. I'm Joanna Penn, and in 2009 I created a business plan for what became The Creative Penn Limited, a multi-six-figure company with books at its heart. I'm an award-nominated New York Times and USA Today best-selling thriller and dark fantasy author as J.F. Penn, and I also write non-fiction for authors. I'm an award-winning podcaster with 2 shows, The Creative Penn and Books and Travel, and an international professional speaker. My business has multiple streams of income, including books in different formats in multiple stores, and I've sold copies in 159 countries. I also have online courses, affiliate income, podcast sponsorship, and Patreon, among others. But it wasn't always like this. I started out with 1 book, no audience, and no experience in publishing or online sales and marketing. but I wrote a plan for my creative and financial future and took action on my ideas, learning the necessary skills along the way. Since then, I've continued to work toward those original goals, and in 2011, I left my corporate job to become a full-time author entrepreneur. I've never gone back, and I love my creative entrepreneurial life. In this book, I'll guide you through the process of creating a business plan that will help you achieve your creative and financial goals. It's relevant for fiction and non-fiction authors, as well as those who want to include other products, services, and income streams. It's also applicable whether you're just starting out or if you already have a mature author business. A plan helps at any stage of the journey. Right, so that was Human Me. Now have a listen to the same audiobook, Your Author Business Plan, read by Mia from Google Play, which is an American female voice.
Introduction. You are an author. You turn ideas into reality in the shape of a book. You turn the thoughts in your head into valuable intellectual property assets. You understand how powerful the written word can be. This book will help you use your words to create a business plan to take your writing career to the next level, whatever that means for your situation. I'm Joanna Penn, and in 2009, I created a business plan for what became the Creative Penn Limited, a multi-six-figure company with books at its heart. I'm an award-nominated New York Times and USA Today best-selling thriller and dark fantasy author as J.F. Penn, and I also write nonfiction for authors. I'm an award-winning podcaster with 2 shows, The Creative Penn and Books and Travel, and an international professional speaker. My business has multiple streams of income, including books in different formats in multiple stores, and I've sold copies in 159 countries. I also have online courses, affiliate income, podcast sponsorship, and Patreon, among others. But it wasn't always like this. I started out with 1 book, no audience, and no experience in publishing or online sales and marketing. But I wrote a plan for my creative and financial future and took action on my ideas, learning the necessary skills along the way. Since then, I've continued to work toward those original goals, and in 2011, I left my corporate job to become a full-time author entrepreneur. I've never gone back, and I love my creative, entrepreneurial life. In this book, I'll guide you through the process of creating a business plan that will help you achieve your creative and financial goals. It's relevant for fiction and nonfiction authors, as well as those who want to include other products, services, and income streams. It's also applicable whether you're just starting out or if you already have a mature author business. A plan helps at any stage of the journey.
I love her voice, actually. I really like that narration, which is really funny. So for fiction, here's me reading some of my short story, Sins of Violence, which is one of the short stories in 1,000 Fiendish Angels. An explosion rocked the air, raining chunks of masonry and glass down from the building above. Ari and Sybil dived beneath the hulk of a ruined truck, rolling underneath to shelter from the hail of debris. "It's getting closer." Sybil's voice was tinged with a longing for battle, and Ari knew her friend wanted to be back there, fighting deep in Sector 35. The Corps was the only family they had now, a renegade team trying to restore order to a tiny corner of the desolate planet. Once the dust had settled, Ari rolled out from under the vehicle. "The war won't end while we take a few hours off." She sprang to her feet, her lithe body as fast as a wildcat. "Time off?" Sybil laughed as she brushed herself down. "I haven't heard that expression since before the contagion. Come on, we need to keep moving." Ari scanned the scene, acutely aware that they were off their patch, deep into untamed territory. But she had to risk running this gauntlet. It was almost too late. The message had arrived a few days before. passed through the networks that kept communication alive on this forsaken continent. Elise was about to be blessed, and Ari couldn't let that happen. Even though she hadn't seen her sister for 15 years, she still remembered her blonde curls and the way her skin smelled after a bath, back in the days when they were still possible. The little girl's innocent giggle stuck most in her mind, the last thing she heard before she was led away for her own blessing. She would not let that same violation happen to Elise. And then this is the same short story, Sins of Violence, digitally narrated with the voice of William Birch, a British male, also with a Southern English accent, produced by Deep Zen Limited. So this version is digitally narrated.
An explosion rocked the air, raining chunks of masonry and glass down from the building above. Ari and Sybil dived behind the hulk of a ruined truck, rolling underneath to shelter from the hail of debris. It's getting closer. Sybil's voice was tinged with a longing for battle, and Ari knew her friend wanted to be back there, fighting deep in Sector 35. The Corps was the only family they had now, a renegade team trying to restore order to a tiny corner of the desolate planet. Once the dust had settled, Ari rolled out from under the vehicle. The war won't end while we take a few hours off. She sprang to her feet, her lithe body as fast as a wildcat. Time off? Sybil laughed as she brushed herself down. I haven't heard that expression since before the contagion. Come on. We need to keep moving. Ari scanned the scene, acutely aware that they were off their patch, deep into untamed territory, but she had to risk running this gauntlet. It was almost too late. The message had arrived a few days before, passed through the networks that kept communication alive on this forsaken continent. Elise was about to be blessed, and Ari couldn't let that happen. Even though she hadn't seen her sister for 15 years, she still remembered her blonde curls and the way her skin smelled after a bath, back in the days when they were still possible. The little girl's innocent giggle stuck most in her mind, the last thing she heard before she was led away for her own blessing. She would not let that same violation happen to Elise.
As ever, I'd love to know what you think. Please leave a comment on the show notes or on the YouTube channel. Tweet me at The Creative Pen or email me, Joanna at thecreativepen.com. Thanks again to my patrons who sponsor these extra shows and give me the time to move into the future of creativity. You can support the show at patreon.com, patreon.com/The Creative Pen. You can also buy me a coffee if you just want to do a one-off, buymeacoffee.com/The Creative Pen. And you can find out more on how AI can help you create and earn more in my course on the AI Assisted Author. You can find all my courses at thecreativepen.com/learn. Right, back to the normal show on Monday where we're back on the craft of writing fiction. So changing direction again. So happy writing, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you found it helpful. You might also like the backlist episodes and show notes, available at thecreativepen.com/podcast. You can also get your free author blueprint at thecreativepen.com/blueprint. If you'd like to connect, you can tweet me at The Creative Pen or find me on Facebook at The Creative Pen. See you next time.